Whoa, welcome. Yo, it's me, L-Dog from L-Town. Welcome to the Fuzzy Felt Feelings podcast. My name is Lily, and this week was my birthday. I look like a little creepy little guy today in my silly little hoodie. It's just because I'm really cold. That's your over-explaining me. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my tiny little mind. It was my birthday this week on Monday. I was meant to film this ages ago, but clearly I'm not very good at being consistent. So I am filming this now, and I've decided to do 23 things that I've learned in my 23 years of living in this planet Earth. So I'm going to go from age 1 to age 23, and I'm going to tell you a different life lesson that I learned at each stage in my life. My birthday was great, by the way. Did a bottomless brunch, got on a train, very drunk, met my family. Less drunk, but having a great time. And then I went out the next day and drank 4 bottles of wine. So I've been really hungover for like 5 years. Here's what I learned age 1. Smiling gets you more attention than crying. I was the first child born ever in this planet. No, out of all of my family and out of all of my parents' friends, I was the first little kid. When you're in a room with a bunch of like 20-year-olds, the 20-year-olds don't want to hold the annoying crying baby. Ever. They want to hold the cute, giggly, smiley baby. If you're the cute, giggly, smiley baby, you get lots of attention. So I learnt that, and I've been cute, giggly, and smiley my whole life ever since. Biggest people pleaser in the world over here, and I think that's probably why. Because I learned as a very small child that if I just am like relatively cute, I'll just get all the attention, and it's #epic. At age 2, I realised that performing is the best thing ever, and I want to do it for the rest of my entire life, always, constantly, 24/7. Please give me a microphone, put me on a stage. Thank you very much. I probably did know it earlier than 2, but my first like recorded thing of me performing properly are these videos on YouTube of me when I'm 2, and I'm doing like an impression, I'm telling the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, and I also tell another story as well with all of my teddies, and like we made this film, and that was the first time that I'd properly like created something. I don't know, like I've always been telling stories, but this was the first time I'd like performed, you know, and it was great. So yeah, that's what I learned age 2. Age 3, sharing can be difficult, but you can also adapt. This was the age that my sister was born, little baby Willow. I mean, I think I learned that having a sibling is great and you have another friend, but unfortunately you do have to share, and the baby won't be able to speak for like a year and a half, so it is a little bit boring to begin with, but you know, you get over it, and you do have to share the attention, which can be hard. But Willow will learn to cry and only be with mum forever for the first like 5 years of her life. I was getting all of like the I'm amazing and I'm doing all of these things and look at me do a cartwheel, and Willow was like, how can I get attention? I'll just cry a lot. At age number 4, I discovered that Sing on the Xbox is the best game to ever be invented. Still to this day, that's how I view music. I've had this conversation with quite a few people now about how they like physically view music if they're like performing it. And there was a guy who said that he played piano and he saw music as a piano, like he could visualize it as a piano. I know quite a lot of guitarists who like visualize music as if they're they'll play air guitar as they're listening to music to sort of figure it out. I see it as the Xbox game Sing, where you have the notes and the melodies and they're all put into like lines like that, and with the words underneath it. And I used to play that religiously. I used to get the top marks on everything because I would literally sit there for hours and hours and hours just singing and singing and singing until I got full marks on everything. Yeah, it was amazing. I don't actually really like video games very much, but obviously this meant that I could make as much noise as humanly possible, and so I would do that, and it was great. Number 5, best friends are absolutely great, but also don't let it limit your other connections. When I got to primary school, I had a best friend, and I actually had there were 2 best friends, and we were this little trio, but there were loads of other people around who I really wanted to be friends with at the time, and I feel like I wasn't friends with them because I had these best friends. And so yeah, I kind of learned I need to broaden my horizons and not like close myself off from being friends with everybody, but also I like having a person there who can be around me all the time, which is really nice. And like my primary school best friend, we would just like, I don't know, I really enjoyed our friendship when we were younger. It was like, I don't know, like, you know when you just find someone and you just understand each other and you're like, yeah, you're just like best friends. That's what we were like, and it was great. But yeah, there were definitely other people in primary school who I kind of wish that I'd talked to a bit more. I think I did sort of limit myself quite a lot, and the friendship did sort of kind of stop when I got into year 5, and that was really hard because I didn't have any other friends and I didn't know what to do. So I had to make new friends, and I made a big friendship group, and it was really nice. But when I was 5, you need to remember you can't limit other connections, but best friends are #epic. At age number 6, I got told off by a teacher for the first time, and it was the most horrific experience of my entire life. And so the thing that I learned was being told off is horrible, remain a teacher's pet forever. Me and my friend Ailsa, we were sat next to each other in year 1, and I was writing down the answers to the thing, and then Ailsa leaned over and went, Lily, can I if I copy what you're writing, then I don't have to do any work. And I was like, that is actually pretty genius. Yeah, go for it. So I was writing, and then Ailsa was copying what I was writing, and then we got sat down by the teacher because obviously I'm in year 1. I'm making significant mistakes throughout my whole thing, and all of the spellings are wrong in the same way. So the teacher obviously knew we were copying, and she went, guys, you've been copying each other and I'm going to have to punish you in a massive way. And we were like, oh my God, what are you going to do? It just meant that Ailsa had to swap seats with the person sat opposite her. So we were sat diagonally from each other as opposed to sat next to each other. But that was enough to scare me into never doing anything wrong in a classroom ever again. Well, no, that's a lie. I got very good at being sneaky. I can lie to authority in a very deceiving and good way now, thanks to 6-year-old Lily. Number 7, it's always better to perform too much rather than to perform too little. In year 7, I was cast as Ned the Little Donkey in our primary school performance of Ned the Little Donkey, and I just went for it in every single regard. I was probably the loudest one on stage. I was just being obnoxious and great, as all 7-year-olds should be. I was doing my best, and then the teachers had to basically say that I wasn't allowed to be in certain songs because I was just sort of taking the attention away from all of the other kids. And I think that was the perfect way to go around it. I was performing ridiculously in all of the rehearsals and stuff and going full out. And so instead of stopping me from doing that, they were like, right, okay, well, we're just going to sit you down in these songs so that other kids can have a go. And I think that's the perfect way to be, you should always be performing to your fullest extent. And if people can't handle that, then they can, politely say, right, okay, can you please give everyone else a chance now? Thank you very much. Number 8, maths is the worst subject ever. I was a very sickly little child, especially in year 2 to year 4. Those were the worst years medically for me. I had scarlet fever at one point. I was just not doing great. So I was out of school a lot. One of the reasons that I was out of school a lot was because our teacher used to do these maths games where you would have to stand back to one another, to the other student, and then she'd shout out times tables, and you had to do the times tables really quickly, and if you got it wrong, then the whole class hated you basically because you were on a team with your classmates. I'd never experienced the feeling of anxiety before, and when you feel anxious, it makes you feel really sick and oh God, this is horrible, and it makes you feel sick and shaky and everything. Well, that mixed in with the fact that I'd been so ill for 2 years was very confusing to my little brain, and I basically would just go home every single day before maths. I'd just leave. I didn't go to a maths lesson with this one specific teacher for the whole of year 3, which has obviously massively impacted my math skills to this day because I just didn't do my times table. I just didn't learn my times tables because instead of learning them, I would just feel so anxious and not know what that feeling was and just leave. The time when that didn't work was when I told my teacher, I feel really sick, I need to go home. She went, Lily, you've been at home a lot, so I'm just not going to let you leave. I know what you're doing. You're just trying to get home. Go home. My auntie used to be a lunch lady, and I used to tell her all the time, and I used to get sent home all the time, so I know what you're doing. She was a bitch. I hated her. And I just started crying because I was so anxious. I was such an anxious little kid, and I was just told in front of the entire class that I was lying about feeling ill. I did actually feel sick. It was just not an illness that needed to be helped. It was like mental. And I just stood in front of the whole class and I just sobbed. And she was like, right, there you go. And then like I had to sit down, and then a bunch of people on my table were like, yeah, Lily, you lie about being ill. And I was like, I feel really sick. And obviously that didn't help with the anxiety. Anyway, maths is evil and it should die. That's number 8. Number 9, it's okay to think differently. Everyone else will eventually catch up. I actually don't know what I'm referring to here. I wrote this list yesterday and I had a story behind each one, but I can't remember what did I do at age 9 that would lead to this being the thing. It's okay to think differently. Everyone else will catch up. Eventually everyone else will catch up. I don't know what that means. I mean, I agree with it. I agree with the sentiment, but I don't know what the story would be surrounding it. What did I do when I was 9? I quite like the sentiment for that. Anyway, it's okay to think differently. Everyone else will catch up eventually. Number 10, Instagram is the best app to ever exist. That's what I learned in that a year. 10-year-old Lily was pretty obsessed. I got an iPod Touch and I was obsessed with it. And I had Instagram, and I had an Instagram account called Perfect4444. I think it's still up on the internet to this day, which is relatively mortifying. And yeah, I used it all the time. I would post every single time I would have a thought. I'm to be honest, I really do actually miss old Instagram. Just putting crappy filters on every single post ever, and just like, I don't know, it was great. But yeah, Instagram is the best app to ever exist ever. And it will ruin your life for the rest of your life because you'll never be able to get off it. Number 11, age 11, being in fandoms is the most fun you will ever have, even if it's deeply cringy. 11 years old was when I started getting into Dan and Phil, Teen Wolf, musical theatre, just everything that is like, oh God, you're the cringiest little human alive. I made so many friends because of it, you know, like my cringy little interests as a tiny little kid. I will always forever be so thankful that I was like an awkward little teenager. Not even teenager yet, like just a little 11-year-old, just obsessed with like random YouTubers and, I don't know, expressing it so overwhelmingly like out there. Like I was so out there with all of my interests. It just led to me having such lovely friendships with people. I look back at little 11-year-old Lily and I'm like, you were so cringe, but like I feel like you were very cool as well. Number 12, be cautious of what you post online and don't get groomed. Also, you're gay. I was never like outright groomed, but I did get involved in a weird foot fetish paedophile ring on YouTube, which I talked about in the first episode. It was very odd. I was posting YouTube videos and I was loving it, and then I kept getting really creepy, weird comments from old men telling me to take my socks off. I think it's just like being aware there are weirdos out there, and you should probably not, you know, be posting every single thought and every single thing in your head, because you are only 12 and there are weirdos who look at 12-year-olds and think, I can get her to remove her socks. Also, you're gay. There was a time when you were very confused and your friend was coming around to your house every Wednesday before Girl Guides. There were lots of emotions there. They were very homosexual thoughts, and she started doing things that were like a little bit annoying. For example, you had some deodorant and she just like used the whole bottle like in one go, and that was really pissed you off, and you were just like, why are you doing this? But you weren't actually pissed off, you were just like in love with her and confused. And then the next day she ate your brownie at lunch and you just lost it and just started screaming at anyone and everyone who would listen, and it was really weird, and everyone was like, what are you doing, Lily? And like, then you made up, obviously, because she'd just eaten your brownie and it was actually fine. But inside, those were not feelings of anger. They were feelings of, I'm in love with my best friend and I don't know what to do about it. Age 13, friendship groups will fluctuate. In age 13, your friendship groups will grow and change and develop, because year 9 is a terrible time for everyone. You will have friends and those friends will leave, and you will have arguments and things will happen and things will change. But there's always a core group of people who will always be your friends. Age 14, think before you speak. Your actions have the ability to hurt people. 14-year-old Lily would just say, but to be honest, all the way up to 14, I would just say whatever came into my head and I wouldn't really think about anything and it would just be fine. At this point, I realised, oh God, things that I'm saying are actually affecting people's lives, you know? Like, I sort of gained a bit of consciousness around that. Age 15, You don't need to power through a performance if you're going to pass out. For some reason, when I was in year 10, I thought that no performance could ever go ahead if I wasn't in it, and That's just not true. One day I didn't go into school because I was so ill, and I managed to convince my mum to take me to the Easter concert. I was in a choir. I wasn't doing any solo. I was in a choir. They didn't need me for it. They could have performed it without me. They stood me right at the very front. I was there. I had to sing 4 songs back to back, and Mum said she just watched me get paler and paler and paler and paler, and then at the very, very end of the song, I ran off the stage and passed out backstage. That's not normal. That's not good. Don't do that. Don't power through a performance if you're going to pass out. Just don't do it. You're going to be fine. Like, no one's going to be mad at you. People would rather you be safe than still doing the performance to a bad degree and passing out. Age 16, do not end any relationship with a letter. I was in a 3-month-long relationship with one of my best friends, and for some reason, well, no, it wasn't for some reason. I think I am potentially a little bit neurodivergent, because I do take some things incredibly literally. And you know when you hear people say, oh, why did you, we broke up and I'm just really mad because I didn't know why. I took that quite literally, and I thought, oh, okay, well, the way that I can make this thing hurt less is if I tell this guy every single thing that he's done wrong within the relationship, and then he'll know exactly why I'm breaking up with him, and so it'll be fine. So I write a 2-page A4 piece of paper, both sides. I write this essay about why I'm breaking up with him. We stand in the middle of the playground. I'm holding this letter and I just read it aloud to him. Halfway through me reading this aloud, our head teacher comes up and asks us how we're doing, because we're in the school play together as the romantic leads. He comes up to us and goes, oh, hey kids, how you doing? And I turn to him and I go, oh, we're fine, thanks. He walks away. I then continue reading the letter. Why do I do that? It took so long. For 2 A4 pieces of paper I'm reading. It was awful. Imagine that. That's not a pleasant thing for anyone to do. So don't end a relationship via the form of reading a letter aloud. I don't know why. I was 16 years old doing that. Why I thought that was a good idea, I don't know. Age 17. Doing something different is hard because sometimes it doesn't work out, but you're very brave for trying. Age 17 is when I decided to go to a different college to study musical theatre, rather than staying at the high school that I've been at for 5 years with all of my other friends. And I decided to go into Manchester every single day to study quite a good musical theatre college. It was a really hard decision for me. This was when I was properly actually mentally ill for the first time ever, which is pretty good going. I made it to 17. But yeah, I got really, really anxious surrounding making the decision, because obviously I'm making a huge change in my life. I know for a fact that if I'd stayed at high school, it wouldn't have been good either. It was a bad decision either way, because I couldn't do the stuff that I wanted to do at high school, because I wanted to be performing, I wanted to do music, I wanted to do drama, I wanted to do that, and those courses weren't running at my old high school. So I would have had to go somewhere else anyway. But I just don't think that the college that I chose was the right fit for me. It was very cliquey, very gross and weird. And a lot of people had told me that before going, but I just kind of was like, no, it's fine, it'll be okay. It was very just we're preparing you to go to drama school. If you decide to do anything different, we're not really going to support you. But I've made that decision, and I think I was very brave for making that decision, because it meant that I was leaving every single person behind. It probably would have worked out better, or more in my favour, if we hadn't gone through lockdown. Lockdown happened whilst I was at this college, and it was a very vocational course, so it just was awful. It was a really terrible time. I was very, very depressed and anxious, but it was the brave decision. But there are reasons why doing something different is hard. And it's because it doesn't work out sometimes. And that's what happened in my case. But I shouldn't be discouraged from doing that. I just need to make sure that I'm aware of that before I do something different in the future. Age 18, just try and brush your teeth and be present. Also, boys are the worst. 18 was awful. 18 was one of the worst years of my life. I would have regular meltdowns, just not being able to get physically out of bed, not being able to wash or like brush my teeth or anything like that. And it's really gross and weird because like everyone talks about the negative effects of mental health, but nobody actually talks about like the physical issues that can come along with. And yeah, it was really horrible. This was because of lockdown and because of there were like stupid boy problems that I was having as well, but like that was like not the most of my worries at that point. It was hard. I struggled a lot in that time period. So yeah, my advice to myself at 18 would be literally just take it one step at a time. Get out of bed, brush your teeth. That's all you need to do at age 18. Just do those things and you'll be okay. 19, you're always happiest when you're performing, and maybe that's why that friendship group made you feel so good. 19 was like I'd been like dragged out of this horrible pit and like put in front of the sun, and everything was great and everything was shining and golden again, and it was amazing. I was in a healthy relationship. I had friends around me all the time and they was just so lovely, and we were doing things and we were going out and we were having fun. And I was doing a gap year, but I was like working really hard. I was doing like a foundation course in creative media. I got a job. Everything just seemed to be working out for me. I am always happiest when I'm performing, and I think that's what I was having to do in that friendship group quite a lot. The friendships were genuine. Everything was genuine. We were genuinely very good friends, but I don't think they were as good friends as I initially thought. My advice at 20 is trust your intuition, trust your friends. You're going to make bad decisions, but those two things will most likely always be right. Everyone makes bad decisions. Everyone does stupid things, and that's okay as long as you accept that you've made a bad decision and accept that that's been the wrong choice on your behalf, and just know that if your friends are telling you this is a terrible idea, but I'm here to support you, and if you do decide to make the wrong decision, that's okay, but this is a terrible decision, you probably should have trusted your friend that it was going to be a terrible decision. Age 21, cutting people off is so hard, but you have to do it to feel fulfilled. There could be people in your life who you love, who you still love to this day, but you know for a fact that you can't communicate with them effectively, and that is you can't be friends with people like that. If you're unable to sustain relationships with people and if the communication is making you feel stressed and anxious, especially considering how many years I've had where I have been so ill, you need to prioritize different kinds of things. And I think a lot of the decisions that I've made that have been really, really difficult have ended up helping me significantly in the long term. And one of those is the people that I've had to cut off in the last few years. Age 22, you are able to create amazing things. Don't forget that. You've written an album. You've written and recorded an entire album. You've also actually technically written two, but you just haven't recorded that one. You've done it. That's amazing. What? 5 years ago, you couldn't get out of bed. Now you've written an entire album and you're fulfilled in life and everything's great. And my advice for 23-year-old me this year would be, you know what you want to do. You just have to do it now. The song this week is Tangled, and the poem that goes alongside that is this, Pining. The impulse to write when this familiar feeling hits me. It's electric on my fingertips, pouring out of me like water spilling onto the page. With you, it feels as though we're always lost together. The times are never right, the words are never there, but somehow it never matters. We both know it can't work, and yet somehow it does. Lying there with you, our pinkies touching and our breath melting together. Lying there with you, not touching, not feeling, not experiencing. Lying there with you, feeling touched, feeling felt, feeling experienced. Lying there with you with whispered words and beating hearts, knowing all the missed opportunities were leading up to this moment, the moment of silent acknowledgement that this was just for us. Now I sit watching from afar, wondering what the future holds, terrified of what this means, yearning for more, but fearing what will come with that, knowing that more is impossible and learning to live with that.